She knocked on my door with nothing left and whispered, "My father said you needed a wife." My name is Matthew Vail. I'm 34 years old and I live alone on a small farm just outside Wheatland, Oregon. Just a modest stretch of wheat, a few rows of vegetables, a chicken coop, 2 dairy cows, an old red barn, and the 2-story wooden house my parents left behind. Enough to keep a man busy from dawn until the light fades. Enough to keep the silence from swallowing him whole. People in town don't call me Matthew much anymore. They call me the man with the scar on the north farm. The scar runs from my left cheek down toward my collarbone, a pale, jagged line that never faded after the tractor accident 10 years ago. Before that, I used to smile without thinking. After the accident, everything changed. Children stared. Women turned their faces away. Men clapped me on the shoulder with that careful, pitying look that said they were glad it hadn't happened to them. So I stayed on the land. The earth doesn't judge a man's face. Crops don't care if you're handsome or broken. If you tend them right, they grow. I liked that kind of fairness. That afternoon in mid-October, I had just come back from the pumpkin patch, hands still dirty, shirt damp with sweat, when I saw her standing on my porch. Elena Morris. She was the daughter of Albert Morris, the man who had kept me from losing this place after the accident. When the bank wanted to foreclose, Albert had stood in their office and told them I wasn't a failure. I was just someone who needed more time. He died 6 months ago. Heart trouble. Now Elena was here, clutching the front of her old coat like she was holding herself together. Her brown hair was coming loose from its low knot, and her boots were dusty from the road. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying for a long time but was refusing to let any more tears fall. I stopped at the bottom step. "Elena, what's wrong?" She looked at me for a long moment, as if she had practiced this conversation 100 times and now couldn't remember a single word. Finally, she lowered her head, and her voice came out barely above a whisper. "My father said you needed a wife." I didn't laugh. I didn't ask her to repeat it, because the second I heard those words, I understood more than she probably meant to say. I stepped up onto the first stair, keeping enough distance so she wouldn't feel cornered. I met her eyes and answered steady and simple. He was right. Her head snapped up. Those blue eyes went wide and wet. She had braced herself for rejection, for pity, maybe even for anger. She hadn't prepared for calm agreement. "No, you don't understand," she said, voice cracking. "I have nothing to offer you. I just lost my job at Mrs. Whitmore's house. My landlord says I have to be out by the end of the week. I don't have money for another room. I don't have any family left. If I come here, I'll only be a burden." When she said the word burden, her eyes dropped to her worn shoes. I saw her hands tremble. Whatever pride she had left was being crushed by circumstance, and it hurt me more than I wanted to admit. "Elena," she went still. "Your father was the best man I ever met in this town. 10 years ago, when I showed up here with nothing and no one, he taught me how to read the weather, how to fix a pump, how to look at soil and know what to plant the next season. When the accident nearly took everything from me, he was the one who told the bank I deserved another chance." Elena's lips trembled. I kept going. "Before he died, he came out here. He was already weak. He sat right there on that old wooden chair under the maple tree and said—" I glanced toward the empty chair beneath the yellowing leaves. The wind moved through them with a dry, quiet sound. "Matthew, Elena is just like her mother, proud enough to starve before she'll take charity. When I'm gone, if she's in trouble, she won't ask anyone for help. But you know what it's like to lose everything and have to start over. Look after the girl, even if she won't let you." Elena's tears finally fell. "I didn't know. He told me he was going to see an old friend. He didn't want you to know. He knew you'd fight it." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "But what will people say? Mrs. Whitmore fired me and told everyone I stole a silver bracelet from her. I didn't, Matthew. I swear I didn't. I believe you," I said, without hesitation. She froze. Those 3 words hit her harder than any comfort I could have offered. This isn't charity. I went on. The farm is too much for one person. You need a roof. I need help. We can make a fair arrangement. What kind of arrangement? We get married, civil ceremony. You'll have the legal right to stay here, a safe place, my insurance if you ever need it. In return, you help with the house, the garden, and the weekend market. You'll have your own room, your own life. No one forces anything else on you. She was quiet for a long time. Her gaze moved over the wooden house behind me, then the golden field, then back to the scar on my face. Elena's eyes didn't show disgust or pity, only exhaustion, caution, and a tiny spark of hope she looked afraid to acknowledge. "What do you get out of this, besides more trouble?" she asked, voice barely there. I gave her a small, tired smile. "Maybe a house that doesn't feel so quiet." From somewhere in town, the church bell rang 6 o'clock. Elena stood in the fading light, caught between losing everything and starting over. At last, she drew a shaky breath and lifted her chin. "When?" "Monday. The courthouse opens at 9. We keep it simple. No party, no noise." "Then Monday," she said softly. I opened the front door and held it for her. "Come inside tonight. Whatever you decide, you don't have to go back to that room in tears." She stood still for a few seconds. Then she walked past the threshold. And from that moment on, the quiet life I had built for myself began to change direction. Monday morning arrived with a pale, clear sky. When I came downstairs, Elena stood near the window in a simple, deep blue dress with small white embroidery along the collar. It had belonged to her mother. I could tell by the way she touched the fabric like she was afraid it might disappear. Something in her expression softened when she saw me, though she tried to hide it. "You look different," she said quietly. "So do you. It's nothing special." "It's enough," I said, and I meant it. The ceremony was over in less than 10 minutes. A county clerk read the legal statements in a flat voice. No music, no flowers, no guests, except Sebastian Cole and Rosa, Elena's closest friend, who pulled Elena aside before we went in and whispered, "Are you sure about this?" Elena glanced at me across the hallway. "I don't know what will happen, but I know he doesn't see me as a burden." When it came time for the rings, I took my mother's old silver band from my pocket. Simple, a little worn at the edges. It was hers. "I don't have much left of her, if you don't mind." She held out her left hand without speaking. Her fingers trembled just once when I slid the ring on. It fit better than I expected. "You may kiss if you wish," the clerk said. I leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. I pressed my mouth to hers for no more than a second, just the briefest touch. But when I straightened up, her eyes had gone wide and dark. She looked as surprised as I felt. On the drive back, she sat staring at the ring, turning it slowly with her thumb. "You hungry?" I asked. "A little. I've got bread and cheese." I'm not much of a cook, but I've managed not to poison myself so far. A small laugh escaped her, the first real sound of relief I'd heard since she appeared on my porch. "I can cook," she said. "My mother taught me." She stopped. The sadness that lived just under her skin showed itself again. I reached across the seat and rested my hand over hers for a moment. She didn't pull away. In the weeks that followed, our days found a rhythm. Elena woke early and cooked. She worked in the garden with a focus that made me realize how much she needed to feel useful. I found more and more reasons to walk past the tomato rows. One morning, she knelt between the plants and started pulling weeds without being asked. "These need staking," she said, voice suddenly sure. "And the lettuce should be harvested soon, or it'll turn bitter." I watched her, surprised. She looked up and caught me staring. "What?" I was wondering why Caroline Whitmore would fire someone who clearly knows what she's doing. Her face darkened. She said I stole a silver bracelet. "My father taught me that honor is worth more than money. I may be poor, but I don't steal." I sat down on the edge of the raised bed beside her. "Caroline once tried to buy this land from me. I turned her down. Ever since then, she's done everything she can to make my life harder. If she fired you, there was something in it for her." Elena's voice almost broke. "Why are you so good to me?" "Because I know what it feels like to be judged by something you can't change. Your father was one of the few people who still saw me as a man. Now it's my turn to return the favor." She stared at the scar for a long moment. Then she reached up and gently touched it with her fingertips. I went completely still. Her voice was quiet but certain. "I don't see a monster. I see a good man who has been hurt. I see strength, not ugliness." I couldn't answer. My throat had closed. 3 weeks after the wedding, Caroline appeared at the farmer's market in her expensive coat, jewelry catching the light. She stopped at our table and looked Elena up and down.
"Well, the new bride. You look right at home selling vegetables."
I stepped forward and stood beside her. "From now on," I said quietly, "we face this together." It was the first time I had said we and truly meant it as something more than an arrangement. Something had shifted between us. It no longer felt like we were only surviving. It had started to feel like we were becoming a family.